Welcome to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society and the ultimate destination for athletic training professionals, students, and educators looking to learn more about sports medicine and athletic training. In each episode, we'll dive headfirst into conversations with experts in the field, bringing you insights, stories, and cutting-edge information about athletic training and sports medicine. This week on Inside Athletic Training, we welcome in Nate Brooks, the minor league medical coordinator for the Oakland Athletics. Enjoy the show. All right, Nate, welcome to Inside Athletic Training. Extremely happy to have you on for episode 59 of the show. Looking forward to talking to you about your career and all things athletic training. For the listeners out there, you're currently in your 8th season as minor league medical coordinator with the Oakland Athletics and 20th year overall with the club. We'll get into details about your career and your job duties and responsibilities and all that good stuff in a bit, but I want to start by you sharing with the listeners a bit about your background. You know, where are you from, what you're into growing up in terms of sports, and also how you found your passion for athletic training.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, for having me. It's an honor to be on the podcast. I've listened to a lot of them, and they've been great, so love the work that you're doing. I grew up in a small town in southern Illinois called Pinckneyville. Probably nobody's ever heard of it. It's about an hour and a half southeast of St. Louis, 5 hours south of Chicago. Really not much going on other than farmland and coal mines. Very simple childhood upbringing. I loved sports growing up, primarily baseball and basketball early on, but as I got into junior high and high school, started to participate in track, cross country, football, and golf. And you mentioned passion for athletic training. Obviously my passion for sports was always there, but then later on in high school, I had an opportunity to take human anatomy and physiology, and that really piqued my interest in learning and understanding the human body. We didn't have a dedicated athletic trainer when I was going through high school. Our coaches were the ones taping up the ankles and wrapping us up with ice bags. I had injured my ankle during my junior year playing basketball and required some physical therapy. So I got to see more of the clinical setting through my ankle rehab, but still didn't have an understanding or know much at all about the athletic training profession. In fact, I really had my sights set on being a PT coming out of high school. And,
that's interesting to hear. How you got familiar with the clinical setting. A lot of our guests and your colleagues across the league have said the similar thing. There's an injury in high school and it kind of leads them down that path of experimenting or learning about what's out there. Speaking of learning, you have your bachelor's degree in exercise science from Murray State and a master's degree in biomechanics from Auburn. Talk a bit about that educational experience. Was that a time when you really dove into athletic training and anatomy and kind of learned that you would like the field, or what was your educational experience like?
Yeah, when I went to Murray State, I had made the decision last minute really not to pursue physical therapy as a career. That's a different story, but I had opted for athletic training at that point in time as a way to sort of combine my passion for sports and interest in the human body. But I was still unsure of what really the athletic training profession entailed. I can remember very early on, my freshman year, going down to our main training room on campus there at Murray State in between classes and any chance I got to observe and shadow. At that time we had a head athletic trainer, an assistant athletic trainer, and 3 GAs to cover 15 sports. So, it didn't take long for me to begin gaining exposure and learning the basics of athletic training. Shortly after that, I was covering practices for, the smaller scale, lower risk sports on my own. And as the hours and semesters of experience accumulated, so did my interest in wanting to pursue a career in athletic training at the professional sports level. I'll tell you that the spring semester of my senior year, the GA at that time who was working baseball got offered a full-time position in professional baseball and took it. He had to report for spring training. So I was asked to step in at that time and oversee the baseball program the rest of the season, which included traveling with them and really diving into all aspects of covering the team, implementing programs. And I think it was at that point in time where I knew I wanted to shift my focus, towards pursuing professional baseball as a career. However, I didn't feel that one semester of college baseball experience, especially at a smaller school like Murray State, would be appealing enough for clubs to show interest in wanting to hire me. I just didn't know at the time. And I hate to admit it, but that was really the main reason I went to Auburn University, because I got offered the GA position for their baseball team and took it, and really for me, education was almost secondary. And again, I hate admitting that here. I was able to then work with the baseball team at Auburn. I was there for 2+ seasons and really started to develop as an athletic trainer. I was able to build relationships with players over multiple seasons, implement programs, oversee rehab progressions, and get to see the results over time. And I know my time at Auburn, definitely better prepared me for the introduction into professional baseball.
Yeah, that's a cool story. And, I know a lot of your colleagues in baseball have mentioned how that hands-on experience, like you said, you hate to admit that the education was secondary, but ultimately working with athletes and, cutting your teeth within a sport, specifically baseball, is hugely important. To add on to that, when you were at Auburn, I know you went there specifically for baseball. Was there any part of you during that time that wanted to experiment with other sports? Did you get to cover other sports in the off season? What was the kind of the outlook like for you? Or was it pretty much just baseball specific for you the entire time?
No, I think I'd always left the door open, for other sports. I at Murray State, again, having 15 sports and only 2 full-time staff and 3 GAs, the students, they relied on us to really cover practices. And I got opportunities to work with all of the sports there over my 4 years there. But, baseball was always what I was most passionate about as a kid growing up and playing. And, of course, like many of us, I wanted to play professionally. And of course, that obviously doesn't work out for most of us. And really, it was that spring semester when the GA left and I got the opportunity to work solely with the baseball team at Murray State. That really solidified, my pursuit for baseball and a professional career.
And, during those early years, maybe whether it was Murray State or even Auburn for that matter, when you're kind of learning the world of athletic training, the world of baseball, upper arm injuries and, just everything about how to operate in a clubhouse and a dugout, things like that. Did you have any role models who kind of took you under their wing and showed you how things, actually work and how to have a feel for the game?
Yeah, at Murray State, it was our head athletic trainer, Alan Lawler. I can remember him being, to me, he was intimidating early on, just that presence that he had. But I realized that was, his unwavering professionalism and day-to-day focus that he was demonstrating, which I grew to really respect. And I think I try to emulate a lot of that today. And at Auburn, guys like James Williams, Jared Grace, Arnold Gamber, to name a few, they had all been there already. And I remember them taking me under their wing and provided a lot of guidance and direction to help, further my young development at the time. They were instrumental, in really developing my athletic training career. And I'll mention the A's. When I joined the A's in 2005, it was Jeff Collins, our minor league medical coordinator at the time. He was the one who called and offered me the position. And I came right out, reported for extended spring training, and spent that first year in Arizona at our complex. And I learned very quickly how much the organization valued and respected Jeff and his work. I tried to just observe and learn as much as I could from Jeff during that particular time and throughout my career. He's always been one of my role models and a big mentor of mine. Some others I have to mention included Walt Horn and Nick Paparesta, who, whether they realize it or not, have made an impact in my career through Walt's persistence and patience, his positivity. I think Walt spent maybe 20 years at the AAA level before having his breakthrough, and just a real testament to his patience and persistence. And then Nick was one that, always pushed me and challenged me. And, at times, that can be difficult to be presented with challenges, but it made me better, as an athletic trainer.
Yeah, everyone you mentioned there, for anyone that knows those guys, Jeff Collins still with the Athletics, Nick Paparesta with the Twins now, and Walt Horn, who, I got to meet Walt a couple times, one of the nicer guys ever. And, like you said, he spent so much time in the minor leagues, I'm sure mentoring so many young athletic trainers. So cool to hear you mention those guys. One thing, that I like to hear on the podcast is the story of how people break into pro baseball. We know that there's so much demand to work in sports, to become an athletic trainer at any level in Major League Baseball and with affiliated clubs. Mentioned earlier that you're in your 8th year as coordinator at the Athletics, but you did spend time at Single A Stockton, Kane County, Vancouver, rookie ball, a lot of different places, just like a lot of your colleagues across the league. Talk to us a little bit about how you broke in, how you got that first job, and kind of how you approached it from there.
Yeah. Going into my final spring semester at Auburn, of course, prior to that, I had realized, I want to pursue a career in professional baseball. Felt like I was ready. My experience at Auburn prepared me for that. And so, going into that final semester, I got on NATA website and PBATS, and I applied for probably every open position there was. And honestly, more so just hoping to get my name out there. Knowing that I still had a semester to complete and I wouldn't finish up my school obligations until May. And obviously I was working with the team, and I thought that, most teams are looking for somebody probably in February, March for spring training. And it was more for me just to get my name out there, possibly land a summer internship, or just have to kind of wait it out a year and maybe try this process again the following season. I ended up hearing back from a couple teams, and one being the A's, and they were willing to allow me to finish up my degree and obligations there at Auburn, and then report out to Arizona when those were concluded. And I'll never forget. It was the day of graduation at Auburn University. Of course, I skipped the graduation, and I was driving out to Phoenix from Auburn, Alabama. I think maybe a 24-hour drive or so, if I remember correctly. And that's kind of how it all began.
Yeah, very, very interesting to hear that. There's always a number of different ways people break into the game. And I for the listeners out there, there's not a single path, I think you could say, that everyone takes. Well, Nate, a lot of people across the league who we've spoken to have mentioned how important that time in the minor leagues is at the lower levels, because it really, teaches you, affords you the opportunity to make mistakes maybe that you wouldn't be able to make at a coordinator position or a big league position. You really find your way, learn how the clubhouse works, get a feel for the game. Did you find the same experience to be for you at the minor leagues, where you were able to kind of, learn trial by fire, get your hands dirty, and kind of dive into the world of athletic training?
I do. Having had the opportunity thus far to work at an affiliate for a handful of years, serve as our rehab coordinator for 4 years, and now in my current role as the medical coordinator, it's allowed me to really have an understanding in these three areas, which has been very beneficial in both my personal and organizational development. You mentioned mistakes, and I've certainly made my fair share, and we'll continue to make mistakes. But the key is learning from those experiences, and hopefully I can utilize that to help my own growth as well as that of our staff, and they can lean on me for experience and guidance. I've been very fortunate and grateful for the opportunities and guidance that I've been given, thus far in my career, and just tried to make the most of them, never taking anything for granted.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Not taking things for granted is something we could all probably do a little better job of. And within that, when you're in the minor leagues in the early days, appreciating where you are, being where your feet are, as people might say. How do you go about maintaining that mindset and not worrying so much about, what are the people at the higher level? What are the Major League Athletic trainers think of me? How do I get up to that next position? How do you kind of stay present when you're a very young athletic trainer and kind of working your way up?
Yeah, I think, you stay focused. You can only control so much. The day-to-day. There's a lot of things that we do that are out of our control, out of our hands per se, and we can't worry about that. We've got to show up every day with a plan and carry out that plan to the best of our ability, and just stay focused and be present in the moment, understanding that every day that we show up, someone is leaning on us for direction and guidance, whether that's our players and their health, staff needs. I mean, athletic trainers, we do so much. We're asked upon for things every single day. So I think just having that focus day in and day out really helps.
Yeah, and when you're finally into a coordinator role, which is a hugely important position with the club, you've been in the role for quite a while now, very experienced. I do want to get into the details of your current role. I think a lot of people know what the head athletic trainer might do, what an assistant athletic trainer might do at the big league level. But let's get into a bit about the coordinator role. Let the listeners know, first off, what are the main duties and responsibilities of someone in a position like yours with the Oakland Athletics?
Sure. My day-to-day involves overseeing the healthcare of our minor league players, communicating and working closely with our affiliate athletic trainers, helping them navigate through any issues with our players, dealing with acute injuries, development of preventative maintenance plans, rehab cases, and return to play progressions, just as an example. This aspect of the job is very fluid and may involve initial conversations about an injury or issue that developed that night during a game, and then following up the next morning with them to discuss in more detail a plan of action and staying in communication as we work together through these situations. The day-to-day also entails working with our rehab department and monitoring the respective rehab plans. I also spend a fair amount of time working with our network of physicians, coordinating and scheduling appointments. And lastly, it's imperative that we work in collaboration with our performance staff. And I'm in daily communication with them on our player programs. We're really one team, our medical staff and our performance staff. The work that we do has to sync up and complement each other's. And so it involves daily collaboration and communication with our performance staff. So there's a lot of things that go on in our roles as a medical coordinator. You got to have an agenda. You have to prepare, but every single day, I think something new gets thrown on your plate where you've got to kind of stop, adapt on the fly, whether it's dealing with new injuries with players, staff needs. Something always seems to come up to kind of throw a little wrench in the day. But, I think that's where our experience as athletic trainers, that's what we thrive on. We thrive on adaptability and handling the situations. So there's a lot that goes into the day-to-day.
Yeah, and you're managing such a huge role with the athletics organization, seeing as you have your hand on the pulse of every affiliate, but also communicating so much with the big league athletic trainers, and people in charge there. Talk about the communication aspect. I know, with Brian Shulman, Jeff Collins, everybody up at the major league level, you guys have worked together for a long time, probably have great systems in place, but you're also working to communicate, like you said, with the affiliates and with the performance team. How do you make sure you keep all that in order, and how do you, perceive communication as being one of the most important aspects of your job?
Yeah, communications is crucial. And I'm in communication with our director of sports medicine and rehab, Brian Shulman, almost daily. As he and I work through player cases at the minor league level, knowing how in tune Brian and the staff up there are with what's going on at the minor league level, and having their support really has a positive impact. There's a sound understanding of the expectations from the top down, which filtrates amongst our minor league staff, and it only enhances our growth on an individual level, but also as a staff as a whole. So you can't operate effectively and efficiently without constant communication. That's something that I know Brian is a big preacher of, and we try to preach it obviously down at the minor league level. He's in a position where he needs to know everything that's going on and have that constant pulse on the organization.
And I do want to touch more about Brian Shulman. Like you said, he's the director of sports medicine and rehabilitation for the Athletics, entering his 14th year with the organization this year. Talk a bit about the camaraderie between the group, you, Brian, Jeff, Brad LaRosa, Elliot Deal, the guys at the major league level who have been there for a number of years. You guys have a staff that seemingly has stuck together a lot longer than most. And I want to hear how impactful and important that is to you guys.
Yeah, starting with Brian, Brian and I, we've worked extremely close together, especially since he transitioned into the director of sports medicine and rehab role last season, which was a new position. A lot of that communication early on last season was the two of us just working on understanding, the approach between our roles and how we can continue to effectively build our staff development and sports medicine program. Brian has also been an experienced voice and ear for me and our staff, when it comes to troubleshooting and talking through player injuries and our plan of care. Brian, he's pushed and challenged me and our staff, but it's with foresight and always with a positive impact. As I said earlier, there's not too many days where he and I don't talk, in his dedication to his role, and our staff development and player health has been instrumental. And, again, knowing that the entire staff up there, Jeff and Brad and Elliot, all have our support, really means a lot. Jeff was in my seat before, and again, has been a huge mentor of mine, and he understands the minor league level and being a minor league coordinator. So that's helped me out a lot, especially early on as I was transitioning into my current role. I called upon Jeff for anything and everything, and he was fantastic about making that transition seamless. Brad, having been with us, in my early days in my career with the A's, he was one I looked up to. He was always at the AAA level, and that was a level that I certainly wanted to get to, and he was great, even though I was young and new, and he would always reach out and, lend a helping hand and make sure that things were going well for me. And Elliot, he's spent time in the minor league levels as well. He understands it and gotten the opportunity to come on board with us, and, excited about what he brings to the rehab department up there at the major league level. So it's a really great group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of great groups, I'm going to shift gears here a bit. I do want to talk about something that's very important to you and kind of your passion within PBATS, and that's the minor league one-day charity. You work with a great group of athletic trainers in minor leagues to put this on each year. You guys have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for charitable causes over the years. Love for you to take some time to share with our listeners more about the one-day charity within PBATS, how that works and also how it got started.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for recognizing the one-day charity here on this podcast. As you mentioned, it's very special to me. The one-day charity was established all the way back in 2012 at the winter meetings by the group of minor league coordinators at that time, under the umbrella of PBATS. The mission behind the one-day charity was creating an opportunity to give back to organizations with a greater cause and making an impact outside of the game of baseball. I think, players obviously have a big platform, and, athletic trainers, we tend to live behind the scenes, but, we still have a voice, we still have a platform. And at that point in time, we wanted to try to utilize that to make a difference outside of the game of baseball. And the name originated around the idea that all minor league athletic trainers would donate one day's meal money during spring training to help support that year's nominated charitable organization. And over the years, we pushed to expand our fundraiser to our staff across different departments and to our players within each organization. And as a result, to date, we've raised over $250,000. And I think I speak for everyone in our profession in saying that, we're very fortunate to have been given the opportunities to be where we are today. Mm-hmm. And for so many others, they were dealt a different hand, in life and without the same opportunities. And knowing that we can make a difference and have an impact to those less fortunate through the one-day charity is something really special. It means a lot to me. And serving as the committee chair, I really I can't tell you, how thankful these charities are when we call them up and tell them who we are and that we've chosen them to be our recipient. They are just They're so excited and beyond grateful. It's a really great thing.
Yeah, it's an awesome charity. You guys have done so much work for multiple causes over the years since I've known you. And I do want to touch a little bit about this year's charitable efforts. This year, you raise money for the Special Olympics. Can you go ahead and talk about how that decision was made, how you came about, donating to them, and kind of the process for that picking that group this year?
Yeah, every year we go through a nomination and voting process to allow all coordinators a voice, in choosing that year's charitable organization. This year we voted on Special Olympics, as you mentioned, as our recipient, and we're actually currently wrapping up our fundraising efforts, waiting on a few more donations to come in, and we'll be presenting Special Olympics with our final donation here soon. I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to thank all of the coordinators again for their efforts in pushing our fundraiser this year. And a special thanks to the committee members, which include Patrick Service, Jeremy Clipperton, Chris Whitman, Matt Hunter, and Drew Scott for their work throughout the one-day charity this year.
Mm-hmm. And again, Nate, if you want to let people know where they can find out more information, I'm sure there's some website or anything, feel free to take a second here for that as well.
Yeah, we have wrapped up the charity. It is something that we try to kick off at the beginning of spring training, utilize the entire month of March for spring training, and really push every organization. We're driving and pushing donations through our staff, through players. The charities make it super easy. Everything's sort of digital and online these days. So it's very easy to go and contribute and donate to these charities. And like I said, we're waiting for just a couple more donations from some clubs to come in before we can present a final check to Special Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Overall, awesome work from you, your colleagues in the coordinator position, and all the minor league athletic trainers who donated. So, all those organizations and PBATs as well, very appreciative of your efforts there. Shifting gears a bit, Nate, I want to talk about 2023 quickly with you. Pretty special year for you. You were named the Minor League Athletic Trainer of the Year by PBATs, as voted on by your peers, and we presented you with that award at the winter meetings in Nashville. Also, you were awarded the Minor League Coordinator of the Year award to make you eligible for that overall award as well. Talk about winning those awards, kind of the gratification that comes from it, but also what it means to win an award that's voted on, by your peers across the league.
Yeah, to be honest, ever since the announcement last fall and through the recognition at winter meetings, and even today, I don't think it's ever really sunk in or felt right, I guess. And, I say that because we don't do what we do as athletic trainers in this profession for recognition or accolades. Like I said, we live behind the scenes and go unnoticed, and that's the way we like it. And knowing the roles and responsibilities of the coordinators out there and the athletic trainers across minor league baseball and how hard they're working and what they have to do on a day-to-day basis, I mean, there's so many who are deserving of these awards. Nevertheless, I was truly honored, by the recognition from my peers and have to give credit to our staff, here and most importantly, the support and sacrifice from my wife and family. They recognize, the baseball season comes and the hours are long, the days at home become short, and they really have made a lot of sacrifices, and I just don't think, I would be able to do the job that I do without their support. And, this recognition really has only added to my motivation and passion for the profession to continue that on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's obviously you're well deserving of the honor. And again, a big year for 2023 for you and your colleagues in Oakland. Speaking of those colleagues in Oakland, I know we mentioned the major league staff, but I do want to give you a couple minutes here today and let you kind of share some info about the rest of the staff and recognize some of the other people, in the athletics, sports medicine and performance staff who kind of help you do your job and make things easier for you every day.
Absolutely. Along with Brian, the major league staff, including Jeff, our head athletic trainer, Brad LaRosa, Elliot Deal, those guys, again, are great, as I mentioned earlier, very supportive of our minor league staff, which includes Dave Comu, Jake Routhier at our AAA affiliate in Las Vegas, Eric Fast in our AA affiliate in Midland, Texas, Noah Huff, our high A affiliate in Lansing, Michigan, Audie Merrick at our low A affiliate in Stockton, California, Rachel Purcell and R.K. Sung at our Arizona complex, overseeing our Arizona complex team, Daniel Hernandez at our Dominican Republic Academy, Nick Volker, our Latin American medical coordinator who oversees our players' healthcare at our DR Academy, our rehab coordinator, Javier Alvidrez, and assistant rehab coordinator, Brittany Bilodeau, who oversee our minor league rehabs out of our complex here in Arizona, and Leslie Jimenez, our seasonal athletic trainer at our complex here in Arizona. This group, they're my eyes and ears, and I rely heavily on them day in and day out. They do a tremendous job, making my life easier, keeping me in check, at times, reminding me of things at times, and they really deserve a ton of credit. It's a young, talented, and driven group that we're very excited to see continue to grow and develop, and the potential there. We're really excited.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely a fantastic staff there in Oakland and all across the country within the athletics organization. And, wishing you guys nothing but the best of luck throughout this season. Well, Nate, to wrap up today's episode, we're going to finish with a quick Q&A segment that we call Extra Bases here on the podcast. So I will ask you 4 quick questions and let you share some insight into some of your favorite things about athletic training in baseball. So we'll kick it off at first base here. Along your, the stops in your career, what is your favorite athletic training room to work in baseball?
Well, it's been a while since I've been out at an affiliate other than our own.
Sure.
But I will say they really did a nice job in the design of our AAA affiliate in Las Vegas. It's a great stadium and a great training room set up, and our staff there has it. I'll say they have it pretty good. It's a nice place.
Yeah. And moving on to second base here, you have a cool vantage point from watching a lot of games throughout your years in the dugout with the players and the managers, which is a very unique experience, I'm sure, and pretty awesome. Throughout your time, do you have a favorite stadium that you've watched a game from the dugout in?
Well, I had the opportunity to travel with our Major League club last season for a road trip to Houston. And beyond it being an incredible experience, it's a very unique stadium, as you know. Not your typical dimensions, the train up in left field, retractable roof, all that. It's a really pretty cool setting for me, and I really enjoyed that experience. And it was I was very fortunate to be able to be on a road trip to Houston.
Mm-hmm. And moving on to third base, you've been to a ton of different cities throughout your career, traveling throughout the minor leagues. Do you have a favorite city that you visited on the road?
Well, I'm going to have to stay on that same road trip. After Houston, the team went to Seattle, and I had never been to Seattle before, and being able to walk out the hotel and down to Pike Place Market and around the water and just that area, it was a really great way to spend some time in the mornings.
Yeah, I agree. I think I had that same experience when I was out in Seattle visiting the Mariners a couple years ago, and realizing that they have the mountains, they have the oceans, they have the market down there, really a very unique city. And I think we've had a ton of people mention that. So definitely a popular answer here on the show. Moving on to the last question for today, home plate. You've been in pro baseball for a long time now, so much experience and an awesome career. When you were getting started in the early days, did you have a, call it, welcome to pro baseball moment at some point?
I don't know that there was one particular moment early on, but there definitely have been experiences that I can look back on that really springboarded my development and career. And, one of those would be working winter ball in Venezuela. That was an early part of my career. 2009, I was there for 3 consecutive winter ball seasons. Got to work alongside Tomas Vera, a longtime Major League athletic trainer, and learn from him, and working with the Major League players the second half of our winter ball season, and just understanding, I can do this. At that time I was in, single A baseball, and I got an opportunity to work with, AA, AAA Major League players in winter ball, and I was like, okay, I belong here. I can do this. And then I think another one was taking the chance on the opportunity to become our rehab coordinator in 2012. That was a new position to the organization, and they asked me to leave Stockton, where I was at that point in time, and move to Phoenix and head up our rehab department, which was new and a little bit of a risk, but it's paid off tremendously, and I've learned so much from those experiences.
Yeah, definitely. It goes to show that, sometimes taking that risk and going to, work rookie ball or the, Dominican Summer League or something like that. A lot of our, guests have mentioned how those risks have really paid off, and you kind of just got to go with your gut and take a chance here in the athletic training world. So we can appreciate that story from you as well. Well, Nate, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining the show. Appreciate all you do for PBATS and for the profession of athletic training. And we wish you and the athletic staff and nothing but the best of luck throughout this upcoming season.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Inside Athletic Training. We hope you've gained valuable insights, inspiration, and knowledge to fuel your athletic training journey. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite platform. And also, stay connected with us on pbats.com for more news about athletic training and sports medicine.